Welcome to the C Analysis Podcast. I'm your host, Chaz Nuttycombe, the director of C Analysis. Today, we're going over, on the Republican side, the conventions, firehouse primaries, and drive-through firehouses for the Virginia House of Delegates contest, as well as the statewide conventions, which are being held on May 8th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. There are 37 polling locations across the Commonwealth. There's ranked choice voting. Anyone can become a Virginia GOP delegate. Matt, you said they are weighted by each area according to population, correct?
Okay. And I want to say thank you, Chaz, for having me on this morning. The weighted vote total is very, very, very weird. It is based on a couple different factors. Number one, your population to your location. Number two, how did you go in the last presidential election? So if you, it sounds screwy, but if you went more for President Trump, you actually get more weighted votes. So a lot of people think that Fairfax is going to be rolling in there with a bunch of votes. And it's actually going to be more places like Roanoke County or somewhere that's, maybe got a little bit more population, but they're also solid Republican.
Yeah, so Matt here, I forgot to give you an introduction. You are a writer for the Virginia Star.
Yeah.
You know Virginia GOP politics a lot better than I do.
And I am no expert. I'm like the two old men on the Muppets who sit and criticize them all the time in the cheap seats. But no, I've been writing about Virginia politics for 6 years. I've covered pretty much every kind of nominating contest known to man because Republicans can't make up their mind how they want to nominate people. A lot of times the phrase is keep it small, control it all. That's what Republicans like to do sometimes. It's very frustrating. Not my brand of Republican. We'd like to have primaries, but, I don't get to make the decisions all the time. So basically, we are this year having a assembled convention, which basically just means we're having a drive-through firehouse primary, but State Central didn't like the idea of calling it a primary, so we call it an assembled convention. It makes no sense.
And for those who are not aware of Virginia's unique nominating methods, basically, stop me if I'm wrong in any of this with the Virginia GOP side, but so each committee will choose whether there is either something called a firehouse, which is where you go into one location and you cast your ballot. You have to register in most cases in order to cast your ballot for a firehouse. And that is for...
Okay. Oh, I'll stop you right there. I apologize. So here's how this works. You can do just a straight old state-run primary where the state comes in, runs your nominating contest, and everything's fine.
Right.
You can have a firehouse primary, which, for example, if you were going to do that in Roanoke City, you would have a polling location at the Berglund Center and right in the middle of town. Everybody could come vote. Nobody would have to pre-register. You would just show up and vote. It would just be one polling location instead of like 20 that are in the city. Then you have what's called a mass meeting, which is basically, I'll use the Berglund Center again as an example. You would have to pre-file as a delegate. You would have to run in the mass meeting to be a delegate, be approved by your local unit committee. Once the local unit committee approves you, then you can go be a delegate to the mass meeting, and then you can go from there. Or you can do, a lot of people are resorting to, because of COVID-19, drive-through firehouse primaries, which just means you'll literally, just like the Denver Riggleman convention last year, you'll just drive up, you'll vote, and then you leave. So I just wanted to make that point of clarification.
So the statewide contest is basically, as you said, a big drive-through firehouse. Most of these contests for the Virginia House, though, are going to be regular primaries. They will be held in June. That's the same day that the Democrats will be nominating their candidates for the House of Delegates who have filed by now, or actually a few days ago, as well as their statewide nominees. And the Democratic Party of Virginia definitely prefers primaries. They try and anytime they can not hold one of these, firehouses and conventions, which they will have, of course, for some of these contests, if they do want to recruit some more candidates, because basically, if you want to run in the primary in June, you have to file by, I believe it was March 27th, right?
Let me look at the calendar.
I think it was the 26th or the 27th.
Yes, you had to file by then, and if you didn't have your papers to the state board, you're not running. I mean, that's just the fact of life.
And that's kind of, obviously we're going to be seeing more contests pop up, like House District 72. That's in Henrico County, and that is not necessarily a must-win for the Virginia Republicans for a GOP majority, but I really doubt that they are going to leave Schuyler Van Valkenburg uncontested.
I can imagine. I can imagine very much so. They will find somebody. If it's a mannequin from the local department store, they will find somebody to run against Schuyler Van Valkenburg.
Yeah. So let's get right into it with the statewide contest. Again, it's May 8th, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Matt, who do you think has the advantage? You were talking about how it's weighted by both population and how it voted in the 2020 presidential election. Given who is running statewide, you have Amanda Chase, obviously, the state senator from Chesterfield, Delegate Cox, the former Speaker of the House, who comes from Colonial Heights. You have Pete Snyder, I would also say, has a pretty good shot at this. He is from Arlington or Alexandria, I believe, one of the two.
Well, let me hold on there. Now, Pete has moved in the past couple of years to the Charlottesville area. He actually lives if you're familiar with where UVA grounds are, he's about 4 or 5 miles from grounds now. And so I always like to correct people. They're like, he's from Nova, and I'm like, wait a minute. He moved away. He got out of that Yankee land and came down south. So we claim him now in Central Virginia. So, but also I will say we've also got Glenn Youngkin. I think that some of the prognosticators are not counting Youngkin in there. And the fact of the matter is he's just got more money than everybody else does. Like, he can stroke himself a check, and there's $2 million in this race, and he can keep stroking $2, $5, $10 million checks. So what I will say about the statewide, I think it has come down to 3 candidates. I believe that this race is now a race between Youngkin, Snyder, and Chase.
Not Cox?
I love the speaker. Let me preface those words. I love Speaker Cox. I respect the speaker. I don't think it's there. I
really.
You got to understand what kind of voter comes to these things. This is not your run-of-the-mill Republican who just sees an ad on TV and says, "Yeah, I'll go vote for that guy." This is the die-hard. I listen to 4 hours of Fox News every day. I read Barry Goldwater's Conscience of a Conservative to my children at night. Like, these are the hardest of hardcore conservatives. It doesn't benefit people who have experience in the legislature. And Kirk has got some things that the Republican base just can't, get on board with, especially, Medicaid expansion and things like that. So I really have seen in the past couple weeks, you'll see people starting to make their decisions when it gets around March. When you have a May convention, about mid-March, people start saying, all right, I'll put my hand up for this guy. I haven't seen that for Cox. He's going to have to really buckle down and put in a miracle. I see a lot of elected officials, party leadership going for Cox. I don't see the rank and file of the Republican Party breaking their neck to endorse Kurt Cox. I will tell you that Snyder is getting a lot of the party leaders and party faithful because he's the golden boy. He's literally put the work in to do it. Snyder, 8 years ago, ran for lieutenant governor, and everyone in our side of the party remembers that convention that Snyder ran in. It lasted 16 hours. It started at 10 o'clock in the morning. It did not end until midnight, 1 a.m. And Snyder, the very next morning in Fairfax County, is holding up an E.W. Jackson sign. So he's always been the loyal soldier to the Republican Party of Virginia. And that's not lost on anybody. People know that. People know that for a fact. And lastly, the junior senator from Chesterfield. I always love calling her the junior senator from Chesterfield. It really, really makes me happy. Tommy Norman, if you're listening, I could kiss you for it. She is just, there are voters who are captivated by her. And they just, I don't know what's wrong with them, but they're captivated by her. They love her. They think she is just everything in a bag of potato chips. And so it's going to be an interesting dynamic between Chase, Snyder, and Youngkin in that race. So, and then the other candidate, I'm going to be honest, Sergio De La Pena, great guy, running a solid campaign, even though he doesn't have a lot of money. Pete Duran, I don't even know if his mom's going to vote for him because nobody else is. Octavia Johnson is our former sheriff in Roanoke City, and Octavia's a friend. She's a great lady. She's a really great lady. I just don't know why she's running for governor. But yeah, that's my rundown of the governor's race. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how was the play?
Well, I will say that I think I would say that Cox is probably the strongest statewide candidate. The issue with, when it comes to a Republican winning in Virginia, obviously, one, you still have to have someone who excites the conservative base, but you have to have someone who can kind of, walk both lines, right? When it comes to a general election. And Cox is the only one who's been able to win in territory that not only voted for Biden, but it voted for Hillary Clinton, it voted for McAuliffe, voted.
But you got to understand that Glenn Youngkin and Pete Snyder have the money to make that happen.
I mean, he's a former Speaker of the House. He was able to raise a lot of money before. I don't think that would change much now if he were the nominee.
Well, you and I might have to disagree on that, but I really think this race is down to Snyder, Youngkin, and Chase. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah. And Chase got banned from Facebook recently.
She's banned?
Yeah, her Facebook page, if I recall correctly, maybe I'm wrong on that, but I thought I saw that her Facebook page was banned and Facebook page was not coming back up.
You have to go find one of her little minions to find out where she's going to be at, which is quite annoying as a writer because I'm like, where's Amanda at right now? And you gotta go over here, and then you gotta follow this link, and you gotta, follow the yellow brick road and go speak to the Wizard of Oz, and then finally you find out where Amanda's at this week.
Yeah, and do you think that's? I mean, when her campaign is, like you said, Snyder and Youngkin, have good financial prowess when it comes to raising money for this, but Chase really has the grassroots of conservatives.
Right.
So do you think her getting banned on Facebook, which, is a great platform for something like this to, mobilize and, register delegates, do you think that hurts her a lot? I think that's detrimental to her campaign.
Absolutely hurts her. I think it absolutely hurts her. It's going to hurt her chasing pre-file forms for delegates. It's going to hurt her in many different ways. It's not good. It's not beneficial to Amanda. Especially when Pete Snyder and Glenn Youngkin can literally just clog up everybody's timeline. Everybody's timeline is currently clogged up with Snyder Youngkin stuff. I'm literally scrolling through, and the first thing I see, Glenn Youngkin, support me with $5. I'm like, okay, Glenn. Uh, but no, I will tell you the lieutenant governor's race. I have a headline in the Virginia Star today. The lieutenant governor's race got turned on its head yesterday. Winsome Sears, who nobody just came out of nowhere, and was endorsed by two of the candidates for governor, one of them being the junior senator from Chesterfield, Amanda Chase, and just dropping a bomb on that race and just being like, look, I'm here to play. I'm going to be taken seriously. Here's the endorsement of Amanda Chase. I am the conservative alternative to Hugo and Davis. Come fight me. And she laid her cards on the table yesterday. So Delegate Sears basically said to the entire lieutenant governor field, she's like, I'm going to be taken seriously. Here's my cards, laying them on the table. Come fight me now. I'm the conservative alternative. And then in the attorney general's race, although I do think that it'll probably be Glenn Davis's race to lose. In the AG race, it's Miyares by 10 country miles. I mean, it's just,
oh yeah,
Miyares is so far ahead. Like me, basically, let's put it this way: if this were a race across Virginia and we started in Lee County, and we ended in Virginia Beach, Jason is at about Newport News, Chesapeake, and the rest of his candidates are in Abingdon. Like nobody is even close. I'm really, and this is something I've speculated, I really think Leslie Haley is just doing this so that she can run for 7th District congressional seat, because all of her endorsements and all of her in-person campaigning is in the 7th congressional district. So methinks something's afoot. Chuck Smith has run for 45 offices already, so he probably won't win this one. Jack White is an interesting phenomenon. He hired a firm called Pool House Agency. Pool House is very expensive, but they're very good. And so you just don't hire Pool House and not have a blank check in your wallet. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out. But I agree that Miyares is ahead by 10 country miles. I've personally, that I'll be honest, that's who I'm going to vote for, is Miyares.
I will say that Miyares is definitely a strong statewide candidate. Compared to the top of the ticket, if I recall correctly, he usually outruns whoever the Republicans nominate at the top of the ticket by double digits. I think he's a pretty good candidate. When it comes to the lieutenant governor race, obviously Tim Hugo has represented a district that did vote for Hillary Clinton, but also he lost it in 2019. If anything, he only won in 2017 because the Democrats didn't really invest much in that race. Obviously, they had a lot of targets.
I will tell you, Hugo is putting about a nickel's worth of effort into this race, especially in Western Virginia. He has not come down here. The closest he has come to Southwest Virginia, except for one time that he took a picture but didn't tell anybody where he was. The only time he's come west of Roanoke, he's come down to west of Roanoke one time. Lance Allen, Glenn Davis, Winsome Sears, they're putting in the work. They're showing a lot of effort. I'll be honest, it's as of yesterday. Like I said, as of yesterday, because of this Amanda Chase endorsement, I think that race is really going to be between Davis and Sears. Allen's going to make it interesting, but it's going to be Sears and Davis now fighting over, the party conservative base to, the more faithful candidates. But yeah, Miyares is great. The other thing that Miyares did that was just an expert move, he brought in the Kilgores into the operation. Terry and Jerry Kilgore are dear friends of mine. I consider them brothers in arms. They brought on Jerry, former Attorney General of Virginia. They brought on Jerry's son, Clark, who worked in the White House Office of Political Affairs. They brought him on as campaign manager. Let me tell you, the Kilgores are campaign machines. Mm-hmm. They are my brothers in arms, and they will absolutely eat your lunch in a Republican nomination, and they will give you a fight that you've never seen for the general election. So Shout out to Terry Clark, and those guys. Love them to death. We got to talk about these House of Delegates candidates, man. This is tough stuff. I'm excited about this part.
Yeah, so let's talk about the House stuff. Let's kind of go, I guess, in numerical order. And most of these contests are not in competitive races, but there are a few that will kind of determine where in our forecast what the rating is. But let's start with District 7. That's out there in your territory, Southwest. And that's a firehouse, right?
Yes, it is a firehouse primary. Delegate Nick Rush, who was on House Appropriations, very respected legislator, chose to retire. He had been there 10 years, and he said, I don't want to do this anymore, and I respect the hell out of him for it. Decided he didn't want to run again, and that's okay. That's fine. He was an excellent appropriator. Decided not to run again. So we have three candidates, Sherry Blevins, Lowell Bowman, and Marie March. Blevins is kind of the establishment House caucus pick. That's who they want. That's who they like. She runs a driving school. She's a Board of Supervisors member. Nice lady running kind of a cookie cutter campaign. The interesting variable in this is Marie March. March is like drinking from a fire hydrant, not the fire hose, the fire hydrant. I've talked to her. She's a very interesting candidate. So basically, Marie March owns a couple different barbecue restaurants in the Christiansburg area. And on January 6th, March decided to attend the Stop the Steal rally in Washington, D.C. She did not, and I want to state very clearly, she did not participate in any rioting at the Capitol or she did not enter the building. She was at the other side of Pennsylvania Avenue down by the White House. She did not do anything that would be considered, treason towards the government. She was just there simply protesting. Well, Chris Hurst decided to make a big, Chris Hurst, the delegate from Blacksburg, decided to make a big kerfuffle about it and complain on his Twitter about her. It raised her profile 1,400 points. And so she's got the Amanda Chase base that really likes her. If she can translate that into getting them to vote in that firehouse, that's gonna be super interesting. March is just, she is a force to be reckoned with, to put it mildly. And so it's going to be very interesting how that one plays out. Bowman, I don't know much about. He is from Carroll County, where I was born and raised, but now lives in the 7th. And nice guy. I've talked to him. But Blevins has got her work cut out for her if with March. So it's going to be very interesting.
Okay. And District 7, for the record, is not a competitive district. It's very much in safe Republican hands.
No, it is not competitive in the least. Nick Rush usually wins it with 60 to 65% of the vote. Not competitive at all.
Well, let's go to another safe race. The next one would be District 9. You have incumbent Charles Poindexter, who, if I recall correctly, beat the former minority leader in the chamber about 10 years ago.
That would be correct.
Yeah. And the district, again, is safe now. But, yeah, he's getting a challenge from Ren Williams. And that is a regular primary, which is being held in June. Again, most of these are regular primaries, and we'll specify which ones are and which ones aren't. But yeah, talk a little bit about that one.
Well, this one's kind of hard, and I'm a little biased because Ren is a dear friend of mine. I love this kid. He's absolutely so energetic, so good-hearted. I really just love Ren.
So you said he's a kid. How old is he?
He's 32. He's a great guy. Basically, Hampden-Sydney from Patrick County, went to Hampden-Sydney, went to law school in Alabama, met his beautiful wife, and basically said, I'd like you to move home, marry me, and practice law with me. And she said, can we have a farm so I can have horses? And he said, yep, we'll get you a farm for horses. And she moved from the Atlanta area, I believe, to little old Stewart, Virginia, and they practiced law together. And so he was a unit chairman for about 3 years. And then the 2020 election happened, and obviously there are multiple opinions about what was going on, but he somehow got connected and went and represented the president on President Trump on his legal team in Wisconsin during the recount, and really got a crash course in election law. And really, he had been a unit chairman. He had been getting Republicans elected, got his board of supervisors flipped from Democrat to Republican. He really kind of inspired him to run. And I'm obviously, if Republicans know, I love Ren. I give advice when I can because he's a friend. The thing about Poindexter is about 10 years ago, Bob McDonnell wanted to take out Ward Armstrong. Ward Armstrong was the minority leader from Martinsville. Ward was a powerhouse in the House of Delegates, and he wanted him out. So they redistricted. This was pre the Legislative Redistricting Commission. The General Assembly had control, and so they drew Ward and Charlie into the same district. And McDonnell said, win it. I don't care how you win it. Like, just get it done. At one point during that race, I believe there was 12 to 15 staffers on Charles Poindexter's House of Delegates race. There was so many staffers running around because I was working Bill Stanley's race, and I would walk in that office and there would just be young people running around. And I was like, why do they need all these people? Like Bill Stanley, there was 6 of us. And then, and we had 3 times the district, but they were so intent. They finally won it. Poindexter has, kind of sat there for a long period of time while his district keeps losing jobs and losing economic opportunity and things just aren't working. I think what Ren's trying to say is it's time for a little bit of a new voice. It's time for a different idea. Einstein said the best definition of stupidity is trying the same thing over and over again. So it's very interesting. Like I said, I'm a little biased. Ren's a dear friend of mine. That one's going to be definitely interesting to watch. Again, very safe seat. Republican could win by sitting in his he could sit and watch television in his underwear for 6 months and still win the House of Delegates. So
yeah, it definitely sounds like you got a horse in that race, and that will be interesting to watch.
I have a horse in that one, and I apologize. I like Ren. Ren's a friend. I can't not. I apologize for all your listeners and everybody listening. I have someone I like. Sue me.
All right, well, let's go on to District 24, and that is another safe Republican race, and that is out in the Valley.
That is Central Virginia, so like Lynchburg. That's like Lynchburg.
Oh,
Bedford.
It's Central?
Yes. So it is basically where that one is. I think you're getting Ronnie Campbell and Kathy Byron mixed up. That's okay.
Yeah.
That one is like Bedford, Campbell.
24 and 25 are the ones where they cracked to Lynchburg in 2, right?
No, 25 is up going towards Stanton.
Okay.
22 is the one that is kind of like.
That's the one.
22 is like a little bit of Bedford, going close to Lynch. I think it might have a little bit of Lynchburg in it because I know Wendell Walker has a majority of the city of Lynchburg because that was Scott Garrett's old district, but very, very conservative district. And Kathy Byron got a primary challenge. People are scratching their head going, excuse me, like what's going on? Because Kathy... I know Democrats don't like her, but Republicans love Kathy Byron. She's very engaging, very friendly, but a superb legislator, works 20-hour days when she's in the General Assembly, never stops working for her district, has brought economic development money here, has brought broadband money here, literally bust her butt. And her primary opponent is kind of prolific in Republican politics. Izzy Knight is kind of the local troublemaker. to put it mildly. He loves to stir the pot, which I have no room to talk. I love to stir the pot too, but I'm not running for office. He is. He loves to stir the pot. The dynamic in this race is interesting, though, and I'll explain why. Izzy was with us on the, when I say us, I mean me and other folks in Denver Riggleman's camp last year. He was with us in Riggleman race. Kathy Byron stayed out of it, was friendly to Bob Good. So the Bob Good people don't necessarily like Izzy Knight. And therefore, if the Bob Good people come after Izzy, that ain't gonna work. That ain't gonna work, and we're gonna have some and Izzy's gonna have some severe problems. Once the finance report comes out, that will probably be an open and shut case. Kathy's gonna be fine. I'm not too concerned about that one.
Okay.
Again, very safe seat. I mean,
right.
Like I said.
And 24 was one I was kind of thinking, and that is the one with Ronnie Campbell. And that is another safe seat. Let's go on to that one. Talk a little bit about that. That is another regular primary being held in June.
Ronnie Campbell was elected in the special election when Ben Klein took his seat to Congress. He is one of the three people who signed a boneheaded letter that said, Vice President Pence, please overturn Virginia's election. But Ronnie's going to be fine. Nobody knows this Mark Reed guy. He's very underfunded. And Campbell's got a lot of goodwill in the district. I think that one, just put it simply, Ronnie Campbell's going to be fine.
Then after that would be District 40. This was Tim Hugo's seat that he lost in 2019. It's probably going to stay in Democratic hands as well. But that one is is it a firehouse, right?
I believe that one is a firehouse.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I don't know either candidate, and I'll be honest, I just don't think we can win that district. That's one where I just don't think we can win that one.
It's not essential for a GOP majority in the House anyway.
Correct.
It's a lean Democrat race in our ratings. Personally, I think it's on its way to likely Democrat, depending on what this next campaign finance report shows. And I will say, when it comes to campaign finance, what we're doing is weighing early money more than late money. So that's why, it could shift a whole rating leftward. Dan Helmer is already got a lot of money in the bank. I'm not really impressed by either of the candidates, just kind of looking at them in terms of, whether I think, Hillenberg or Pine, Dutch Hillenberg and Harold Pine, those are the Republican candidates, whether they can actually win a district that voted for Biden by double digits. It's a tough sell.
I honestly, this one's not on my radar. I don't think we can win it. Neither can, and I'll be. It's not that I don't like. It's not that I like Dan Helmer. I hated his "You've Lost That Love and Feeling" ad so much.
That is a bipartisan thing. Trust me, everybody did not like that.
But House District 50. So that one you're going to get a little mad at me because, again, I have a little bit of a horse in it. Again, let me preface this by this is my personal opinions and not that of who I write for. Mike is a great guy. Mike was my co-host when I was at Bearing Drift. He was my co-host to my podcast. Mike is a great young public school teacher. Him and his wife live in Manassas. They're about to have a baby. They're great people. The dynamic between that one is that Pleckert came out of nowhere and he hired a consultant by the name of Mike Young. Mike used to be the guy over the Senate Republican caucus for Tommy Norment with Jeff Ryer. Mike is just a powerhouse of a consultant. I never count Mike Young out of a race. I don't care if he's trying to run a rubber chicken. Mike Young can make a rubber chicken look electable. And I'm a big fan. So Pleckert is going to have a good consultant and he might have some money, but what he doesn't have is Mike Mike is a worker, and he's going to absolutely beat the bushes to get that election. So it's an interesting dynamic. So I really like that one. I really like that one a lot. It's going to be interesting, but yeah, that one's going to be held May 1st, which is hilarious because Mike's wife is literally going to have a baby like 10 days before the nominating contest. So she may kill him before he gets nominated. So that's going to be really funny. But God love Mike. He's hilarious. She's due any day now, and we're hoping for a happy, healthy baby. And I know Mike is hoping for a Republican nomination. So it's all going to be good to go.
Well, let's go right next door. House District 51. That's the regular primary. We have that in our ratings as lean Democratic, if I recall correctly. This is Hala Ayala's seat. She's running for lieutenant governor. She is not double filing. Democrats have a pretty strong candidate, I would say. I think she will be the delegate for the district, Brianna Sewell. You got Tim Cox and Jeff Dove, and if I recall correctly, Jeff Dove carpetbagged into this seat, correct? Although carpetbagging in Nova ain't carpetbagging really. It's Northern Virginia.
Let me say this. Jeff Dove has ran for about 5 different things. Nice guy. Just he runs too much and people get annoyed and he's just ran too much. I don't think it's on our radar. I don't think we can win it. I will say that just people get kind of frustrated because Jeff Dove runs for every office he can.
And what about Tim Cox?
I honestly don't know a lot about Tim Cox. So I will claim ignorance on Tim Cox.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have to claim ignorance. I don't know him, so I won't comment on him. I will comment that a lot of people know Jeff Dove because he ran for 5 or 6 different offices. So, you know.
Yeah, he was the nominee against Connolly in 2018, right?
Yes, which is just running against Jerry Conley.
It's a suicide mission.
It is a suicide mission. It's exactly what it is. So, you know.
Yeah. Well, let's go on to House District 68. And that one is, as a Richmond, Virginia area resident, you know, I think that one is the most fun because you got Mike Dickinson. And I talked, and I in our last podcast, I mentioned how Mike Dickinson is a pariah, not just in GOP politics, but Richmond, Virginia politics.
Is he the one who did the event at the strip club with Roger Stone or Roger?
I think so. He is a former strip club owner.
Yeah. Okay. He's run for like 14 different things.
Yeah.
And the word used around Richmond when I talk about Mike Dickinson is that he's nasty. Like just the Southern accent comes out. People's like, he's nasty. Like they do not like him. Like strip club owner, very unsavory individual. Mark Early Jr. comes from the family that elected Mark Early Sr., who was a Virginia Attorney General. I imagine that Mr. Early will make mincemeat out of Mr. Dickinson. Maybe
that one's going to be a primary as well, and I definitely think Dickinson will have.
I think Early's got that one in the bag. Like, don't even. I want Mark to campaign for it, but I'm not worried about it. Is what we're saying.
Well, let's go on to the next one. And by the way, House District 68 is a somewhat competitive district. It's likely Democrat in our ratings. And, if they nominate Early, Republicans have about the same shot. If they nominate Mike Dickinson, Dawn Adams, or her primary challenger who could win, they'll win that seat. But let's go on to House District 83. That is a must win. That has to be a win for the Republicans, for the GOP majority. Chris Staley is part of the Staley dynasty. He is the former delegate. He lost in 2019 by I think about 30 votes. 30 votes. Yeah, I think it was somewhere between 30 and 40 some votes. So that went to a recount. That district was redrawn in redistricting. and it is still a district that went to Biden by double digits. But you're talking about a Staley here, and for those unfamiliar with Virginia politics, the Staleys are kind of a local dynasty in Virginia Beach.
Well, they are, for lack of a better term, they are the Ewing family. I mean,
they're really the kind of the Republican Kennedys in a way.
They are the Republican. There are a couple families in Virginia politics that you just don't cross. The Obenshains, the Kilgores, and the Staleys all come to mind. Staleys, especially in the eastern half of the state, Staleys come to mind. Ken Staley is the former state senator, now sheriff of Virginia Beach. Colin Staley is the Commonwealth Attorney of Virginia Beach. Chris Staley, former delegate. Sister Siobhan Staley Dunavant is in the state senate. They're kind of a dynasty. So Chris Staley lost by 30 votes. Tim Anderson, who just came out of freaking nowhere, decided to start doing these videos about the governor's executive orders, which turned into he's now the Republican attorney. If you want to sue the governor or sue a Democrat, he'll just come right up and sue him for you. And people love him in the base. Phil Kazmierzak is an interesting variable to this race. Phil is he is an openly LGBTQ candidate. He is married and has his husband is a naval officer. He was in the United States Army. He's a local realtor. He has got my boy Ben Dixon running his race, aka Cousin Ben. And so that makes it interesting because Ben is a very tough campaigner. And so if you've got a tough campaign full of young people, that's going to make it very interesting coming to the ballot box. Tim Anderson, the base loves him. And then Staley is just a powerhouse in Virginia Beach politics. So that one is going to be super interesting. I have no idea who's going to win it. But absolutely a must win for the Republicans.
I think so. When I'm thinking of Staley, if he is the nominee, I think that I think he would be favored. If they nominate one of these other guys, they nominate a non-Staley. I think Nancy Guy's probably a slight favorite in her reelection bid, maybe a moderate favorite even. So something like Till or lean Democrat. This is district. I think Biden won it by about 13 points or 14 points. Yeah. And, Staley narrowly lost. He also, I think history could repeat itself. 2007 in a similar district, again in Virginia Beach, Staley, when he first ran for the House Delegates, he narrowly lost. Then in 2009, and obviously there are two different presidents between 2007 and 2009, Bush and Obama, Staley won in a romp. Not that I think Staley would be able to win in a romp. I think it's not going to be a 2009 situation when you're looking at 2021, especially with the polarization since then, even in the state legislative stuff. But I think if they nominate one of these other guys, and like you said, I think that Tim Anderson has a pretty good shot. Staley didn't really even kind of make it official until recently. So, Tim Anderson, from what I understand, definitely has a good shot at that. But that'll be an interesting one to watch. And that one is a primary and will be held in June. So we'll find out, what the true rating in our forecast will be there. The last one is House District 88. That one has Rich Breeden in it. I know Breeden was trying to primary state senator. Who's the state senator from state senator?
Bryce Reeves.
Bryce, yeah.
Bryce Reeves, state senator, obviously ran for lieutenant governor and lost to yours truly's favorite candidate, Jill Vogel. I always like to point that out because Jill Vogel, literally one of the greatest joys of my life was helping Jill Vogel get the nomination for lieutenant governor. But Bryce, state senator, somewhat competitive district for Bryce. But that one's interesting because there's a dynamic to it. The Bryce Reeves dynamic Reeves has his chosen candidate, which is Mr. Scott, Philip Scott. Yes, Phil Scott is Bryce Reeves' chosen candidate. That is his boy. That's who he wants. On the other end of that is Rich Breeden, who is not Bryce Reeves' chosen candidate. And but what Rich Breeden has, number one, is he's got the I don't. From what I hear, Hazard is not a factor. I haven't heard
Holly Hazard.
Yeah, Holly Hazard, the Republican one. There's a Democrat one and a Republican one. Holly Hazard, the Republican, not really a big factor. She doesn't have the name ID. But the thing about Breeden is that he's got my boy Jimmy Keedy. Jimmy was a consultant on Riggleman's race last year, and also was a consultant on Daniel Gade's race and a couple other things. But Jimmy is somebody who absolutely will stand in front of a 100-car freight train for his candidate and will outwork and will out-comms you any day of the week, out-message you any day of the week. I would like I don't know. But like I said, Breeden's a tough cookie, and don't ever count Jimmy Keedy out of a race. I don't care if he's trying to get the rubber chicken elected. Jimmy's going to outwork you to try to get that rubber chicken elected.
Yeah, in District 88, it would have been safe if who's the delegate in that seat right now?
Mark Cole.
Mark Cole.
Former chair of privileges and elections, decided to retire.
Yeah, and with Cole, if Cole had not decided to retire, I think this would have been a safe race. We have this race is likely Republican. It did vote for Trump, and I think that the Democratic candidate there isn't really that strong. But I think without Cole in the race, I think there is a decent shot. I could definitely see it going back toward the Republicans' direction to the very likely column. But yeah, and that is a very funny looking district. It goes into Fauquier, Stafford, and Fredericksburg, and some parts of Spotsy. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah. That is correct.
It's a very, when you look at the definition of gerrymander and you look up House District 88, you'll see House District 88. Well, that is about it for the House contest. And so we obviously have gone over the statewide contest. Matt Colt Hall, thank you so much for coming on and giving us your perspective. It'll be interesting to watch all of these contests play out. And in some of these competitive ones, we'll see how that affects our ratings. Obviously, anytime I have a rating change, I always tweet it out. Or I'll write about it. And yeah, thank you so much, Matt.
Well, thank you. I hope you have enjoyed my musings. I am very blessed to be a Republican who can commentate and not work on these campaigns. But I really appreciate it. I always enjoy your maps. You're kind of my go-to guy to look at maps. So I appreciate the opportunity. And if there's ever a time where you need a Republican to commentate, you just call me.
You'll be my go-to.
All right. I appreciate it, my friend.